Well, hello there, and welcome to Australians for Better Government podcast. I'm Mark Neugebauer, Vice President for Australians for Better Government, and we're going to do a little bit of a segment, something new. We're going to try and do a bit of a series in regards to Bills Alert. Now, obviously, many people know that I'm based in South Australia. I have a fellow South Australian joining me this evening to talk about the bills that are tabled to Parliament. We're going to have a little bit of an overview about the Parliament, the structure of the Parliament in South Australia, lower house, upper house, a bit of a follow-up from obviously election results and how it sits, and talk a little bit about that and how bills are formulated, how they're tabled, and how they're read and then passed. So we're going to cover a bit of that. But before we do that, I do just want to remind people to follow along on Australians for Better Government website. It's australiansforbetter.com. You can jump onto our website there, and you can check out our prospectus. Our prospectus is there. You can click on that link. The PDF will download for you. Just to let people know as well, we've got a couple of events coming up. If you're in New South Wales, in the Central Coast region, we have an event, We the People. We're going to have Dr. Christopher Reynolds, Katie McCallum, Martin Stevenson, and our President, Stephen Tripp, there. And then the following day, on Sunday, the 3rd of May, so that was Saturday, the 2nd of May, on Sunday, the 3rd of May, We the People are going to be in Cessnock. So same speakers apart from, so we've got Stuart Bonds at this one instead. So you can jump on to the website and click on the links there to get your tickets as well. If you want to follow our articles, they're on there as well. You can click and read some of the articles that have been written, but obviously also our mission, what we want to try and achieve, reforming the Constitution, ensuring a true separation of powers, empowering voters, enshrining our freedoms, and direct democracy. So you can go into further detail there if you're new and you're not really fully aware of what Australians for Better Government is all about. If you choose to, you can also become a member and help us grow the community and hopefully achieve more in regards to creating a better government in Australia. Many people would acknowledge that there is some fundamental things wrong in our nation in regards to government. We've got the Australian flag campaign, and you can check out latest videos as well. If you'd like to be kept up to date, we can subscribe to the newsletter for Australians for Better Government and check out our affiliates. But also, if you've got questions and you've got suggestions for further content and things you'd like to suggest or guests that you could suggest about bringing us on that can talk into ways that they believe that government can be better here in Australia. So you can fill out the contact us form there. But enough of that. I'm going to bring on our guest for today, Alex Wiengand. Welcome to Australians for Better Government. How about we just start off, and maybe you can just give a quick little bit of an introduction into yourself and why you're kind of looking to present a bit of a series to help Australians and South Australians understand the parliamentary system a bit better.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Yeah. So I think that the whole idea behind Bills Alert here is I want to let people know what's going on in Parliament. I think it's easy to get strong feelings about what happens in politics, but then it's hard to know exactly what the detail is, and sometimes the detail matters. And especially if some law comes out that you're really not a fan of, it would be nice to know how that happened, and be nice to know how to tell when it's going to happen again. And so, yeah. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve with this series. And now I'm looking at state politics. I think state politics is pretty underreported, pretty underrated. We have, national broadcasters talking about national politics all the time. We've got the ABC always talking about national. And then state politics sort of doesn't get a lot of attention, but it still carries a lot of responsibility. It has a lot of influence over our lives. We all depend on state services in one way or another, and the state can make up a law that affect our lives at any time.
When we were off air, you were explaining to me about one of the reasons you sort of got interested in politics. You were mentioning about your mum, obviously listening to your granddad and your dad talking about politics and stuff like that.
That's right. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up, I guess, with politics in the back of my mind, because my mum used to watch the news. She used to talk about what's going on. As you said, when she was growing up, there were heated conversations in the family about how things should be done. She had a capitalist on one side, a labor unionist on the other, and I didn't really focus on politics so much myself when I grew up, but during recent events like after COVID, when we had all the inflation, I saw how over so many years, the dollar can halve in value. Your wage might only go up 20%, so your time is losing value on the market. But at the same time, your vote carries the same value. And so I thought, well, maybe it's time to think a bit more about what to do with that vote and what can be achieved. Either in government or in public awareness. And this is really a public awareness thing. We all put our vote in, and then what happens after that? It's not as well advertised. So that's what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll talk into that a little bit further. And very similar stories. I was politically agnostic. It was the same in our family. My dad was very robust in his political views. My older brothers were very robust in their political views, and there'll be lots of conversations around the dinner table about who thought they had the best policies and that. And but very similar. I think a lot more people have become politically active during the COVID years with the things that you mentioned, plus personal freedoms, individual rights, and so forth. And it's kind of made people sort of stand up a little bit more and say, well, maybe we should pay a little bit more attention about what's going on in government beyond just voting every 4 years or whatever it is for the representatives, but what happens in the meantime. And that's what we're going to be doing a little bit of in this first little episode, and we may as well just crack into it. We're going to be talking a little bit about the structure of the Houses of Parliament and how they run, and currently how they've come about with the election, how the lay of the land currently is, and we're going to talk a little bit about the bills and Hansard. So why don't you take it away, and we'll go through with what you wanted to present.
Yeah. So I will open with the Parliament of South Australia, as this is a South Australian focus, and basically what it is, how it works. I know you've touched on this recently with your election episodes. How to vote. And so, but I think I'll go a bit further with that. So you have the Parliament of South Australia. Yep, it's got two houses. There's the lower house. This is it, the House of Assembly, with the green seats there. And this is in the Parliament building, the one on North Terrace, that was built in 1939, 87 years old. And then, about the House of Assembly, it has 47 members. Each one is for an electorate, which is like a little geographical area, and everyone has one member to represent them inside this house. That's where you have your local member. The idea, I think, is meant to be that there's a little office you can go to. There's the local representatives or one of their staff is there. Well, this is South Australia, so they can actually be in the office. But you go there, you say, I'm concerned about this, and then they're meant to go into the Parliament and speak on behalf of you and everyone else in your electorate. We can see it's sort of like we kind of vote for the Premier by voting for the party that the Premier is in and all this. But that's the nature of that. And then looking at the upper house, the one with the red chairs, this has only 22 members. A rule of thumb is it has about half as many as the lower house. And this one, when we vote this one in, everyone has the same ballot. And we vote in, we vote, the whole state votes together, and then we get the candidates. They only put up half of them for election at a time. So every election, we just elect 11 of them. And then they sit for 8 years, and then, So it's staggered that way. We're always changing over half of it at a time. And then I think
Yeah,
if
we've
we
got the
look
current
at
sitting. The current sitting of just this is where the lay of the land is after
this
the
is
recent
just after
election.
the election, right? Yeah. So this is a very Labor government this time. Not that it makes much difference whether they've got, you know, half plus one or a big lead like this. They basically control all the votes in the House either way. But yeah, a big win for Labor, but still in a way a bit more variety than before. You've still got 4 independents there and 4 new One Nation members.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. And you got the five Liberals, which obviously put them in the opposition from there.
Yes. So they still got the opposition. So yeah,
yep.
We might have some interesting speeches and things going on in there, but Labor will still control the votes.
Yeah, 100%. There might be a little bit more pushback, but we'll see how that goes. And then we've got the lay of the land in regards to the Legislative Council and how it's just currently sitting. And I think there's one still to be determined, which I believe is.
So these are the results, yes, and we've got. That's right. So this is what I looked this up on the ABC yesterday. They said this. I looked this up on the Electoral Council website. They're not officially saying it, but that's why we go through other sources like this. And we're going to have, when you add these together with the ones who are continuing, because it's not the end of their term yet, it comes up to either 10 or 11 will be Labor out of the 22. And because, all right, they have, I should have mentioned, in the lower house, they have a speaker. In the upper house, they have a president. And that person, they're the one who leads the debate, who leads the work of the house, and they don't vote unless it's a tie. So whether Labor gets 10 members or they've got 11, it's sort of like they're just going to be just under half of the house, I think, the way it'll work out. So Labor will need one other representative, one other member to agree with them for things to get through. So if Labor got one more or 2 more, if Claire's not getting in, then they would have controlled both houses. But instead, we've got a situation similar to how it was the last 4 years, where Labor controls the lower house, but the upper house is no one party runs the show. And that's where, from the point of view of looking into what Parliament does, that's very useful, because that means you can't have one party decide everything, bring it out into Parliament and get it through. Instead, there's one place where they still have to talk it out with someone. And so we get to see those discussions, we get to see those votes, I would say, in general. So there's some detail about that I can bring in. But yeah, basically we get to see some of the action there.
And it's worth noting, I believe, as I looked into this a bit myself, is that the lower house currently, the House of Assembly doesn't currently have a speaker because that's got to be re-elected, because Leon Bignell retired from politics this year, so they're going to be looking at a new speaker as well. And from what I understand, they have to be independent from the current political party, I think it was. And I think Leon Bignell had to resign from the Labor Party and become an independent to have the Speaker of the House seat as well. So that's just a bit of an interesting nuance there as well.
I think I saw they changed the constitution just a few years ago, maybe 2023, to require the Speaker to be an independent.
Yeah, very interesting.
An interesting move there, yeah. So in the dynamics, that means you've got a more neutral person, at least nominally neutral. If they're quitting the party, they might still be loyal. Who might allow both sides to speak more freely, you know? But at the same time, it has to be an independent who gives out their vote most of the time.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this turns out, because as we know, we will now have 2 Greens members in the Legislative Council. There's one currently there, and then you've got Melanie's been elected, and we know that the Greens Party and Labor generally do follow suit a long way. So would it almost indicate that Labor would have a majority with a lot of the legislation that they might pass, where, I mean, there might be some things that the Greens may not be doing.
Well, Labor will be in this situation, right, where they've got the Greens on one hand and the Liberals on the other. So whenever it's something the Greens like, it will go through. Whenever it's something the Greens don't like, but the Liberals like, if it's some kind of conventional, what they consider common sense type thing, it will go through. And so a lot of it will be, it might be that the others just watch, but I don't know. One thing is we'll be able to watch because it will be brought up into there, but nothing is set in stone in politics. We'll have a look at what happens.
Yeah, 100%. And then I guess lastly, and you did cover this already, this is the current lay of the land with the 11 MLCs that are continuing their term through to 2030, because as you mentioned, they're 8-year terms. So these guys are only halfway through their 8-year term at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So you can see, you've got one Green there combined with the other one. You've got Sarah Game will be continuing for another 4 years. And the Liberals will still have a decent presence in the House despite their result this election.
Yeah, exactly right. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this unfold going forward. So, yeah, so that hopefully gives people a bit of an idea of where the current lay of the land is from there. So, yeah, what were you going to go through next?
All right. So, what I'm planning for this series is to talk about bills that are in Parliament. What's just come in? Let's see them before they're passed. That kind of thing. And I think from that point of view, I think it might be useful to talk about the process that bills go through. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to be looking at, there's on the website of the Parliament of South Australia, you've got a legislation tracker that shows what's been introduced, or what stage it's in. And you've got the Hansard that you can check to see, okay, has it passed or has it not? And like who voted for it, who voted against. But there's a bit of jargon that helps, if you're reading it, you need to know the jargon. And I think if you want to know what state things are in, it also helps. So that's where I'm going to try to demystify a bit of that. That's where I want to go through the process of a bill. That's where it gets introduced in one of the houses. I think bills normally go through the lower house first and the upper house, but they can go in either direction. They can start in the upper house. And you have one of the members, they make a motion. They put forward a motion to introduce the bill. And then there's a vote. If the House votes that they can introduce the bill. So there's that. And then the bill has what's called the first reading. Now, passing a bill apparently is all about just getting it read 3 times. And the clerk of the House, whether that's upper house or lower house, will read the title of the bill. In the old days, they used to read the whole thing. Of course, if you see how long laws are now, that would be a long reading. So they read the title and it's considered read. After that, this is something about the mechanics of it. The member who introduced the bill moves that it be read a second time. That it doesn't mean they have a vote right away. That means they open the stage where they can start debating the bill. And so the one who moves to get it to the second reading, they do their speech, that say what the bill's meant to be about and everything, and then other people have chances to ask questions, and that's the real debate. Like, is this bill a good idea? Are you taking the right approach, kind of thing? And I think then they can also refer bits of it to subcommittees to look at things to do with it, and then at the end of all of that, they vote on whether it gets read a second time, and it can be okayed or it can be rejected at that point. If it makes it to its second reading, then it's a bit like baseball or something, but there's just 3. So we're looking at the third reading. Now, the third reading is, I think they move for it to be read a third time. But what happens here is usually the House will go into it will become the committee of the whole. So basically they say everyone in the House is one big committee now. The leader of the House steps down and joins everyone. And then they go through the bills section by section. And you can see it in the Hansard. They check this bit, okay, they're okay. They check this bit, they check this bit, and they each point they see, they can accept it, reject it, amend it, and they vote on whether any changes are to be made. And when it gets to the end, then they have a vote on whether to have, whether to let it get to the third reading. And you'll see like the bill is read a third time and passed, if it passes. So that's the stage. That gets it through one of the houses, but a bill has to get through both of the houses. So afterwards, it's transmitted to the other one, and then that's counted as the first reading, and it's in the other house. And then they basically go through the debate, the second reading, the committee, and the third reading. And then if it's passed through both, then it goes to the governor for assent. And you can have a thing where the second house to see it passes it with amendments, and then it has to go back to the first one to okay the amendments or not. And so that's basically the overall process. And one thing about the voting is, and this sort of got me looking at this in the first place. I don't know if you know the website They Vote For You.
Yes, I've heard of that. Yep.
You can look up any politician. You can see, oh, this kind of policy or whatever. This politician's always for it. This one's always against it or whatever. And what they do is they look at the Hansard. I think that's federal politics, and they see, oh, they always voted for. They class all the bills as for or against particular policies, and they go like, okay, well, whenever there was a recorded vote, they went this way or that way. But I tried to look something up one time, like a particular law. I was like, I went to They Vote For You. I was like, where is it? And I couldn't find it. And I went to the Hansard and I found it. It was a bit cryptic because I didn't know the jargon. But what had happened was, and this is common, it got up to a vote. And I don't know if you've seen on Parliament, like in question time or something, all in favour, aye, all opposed, nay. That's the normal way they vote on things. And basically the leader of the House, if they think they heard more aye than nay, they go, oh, it's passed. If they think they heard more nay than aye, they go, it's passed. And it's just, oh, and it's rejected, sorry. And that's what's written in the Hansard, just it passed or it failed. But if they hear a big mess of voices and they don't know what they're hearing, then they call a division. And a division is where they get everyone who's in favour of it to stand on one side, everyone against on the other, and then they actually record in the Hansard who was for or against it. Now, it does mean that if something is passed, say one person votes against it, but you don't know whether that, you want to know whether they were going to vote against it or who it is that vote against it, you won't see it in the Hansard for the state. For the state one, at least, you won't see it. It'll just be like there was more yay than nay, so it passed. But what you can, if you manage to be there, or if you watch the broadcast, you can see it. But the state broadcast, you can only view it when it's live. So if anyone really wants to know what's happening, you can look up when they sit. They've got a sitting calendar on the Parliament website. You can see when they're going to sit, and then you can tune in at that time. It's going back to TV. You have to be there at the right time. Then you can see.
For that? What you're hinting at there is a lack of transparency, because I think it's really important for the public to understand how their members actually voted on certain things, and I think that should be very transparent and easy to find for people. You shouldn't have to, rely on how they vote. It should be something that's, I believe, and this could be something that's, talked about further, for our state and others, about how you can make that process more transparent. The other thing that I guess concerns me a bit is that you're relying on the speaker to listen and hear the correct amount of yays and nays, and I guess there must be a process for someone to object to the decision of the speaker if they've heard wrong or they believe they've heard wrong and calling for a division. Do individual members have that ability to challenge that and request a division, even after the speaker has said, I'm calling it this way? That'd be an interesting thing to find out.
I don't actually know the answer to that question. I think that's a good question. So what I'll do is I'll get you the answer by the next time I come on, because I'm curious to know myself.
Yeah, sounds good. But yeah, so ultimately, it's first reading. It can be rejected on the second reading. The bill, whatever the bill is, it can be rejected. If it makes it through, then they go a bit, meticulously through on the third reading, go through everything. If it passes the lower house, which they generally call the House of Assembly, then it gets processed up to the Legislative Council. They then do that process all over again. If they find the same, that they agree with it, it gets passed, or it can be sent back down with amendments, suggested amendments, and go through that way. So it's a massive process, but this is the thing. It's about how easily the average constituent can access all that information. And I've had a bit of a look, and it's a bit of a it's not everybody's going to have the time. I think people really just want some simple stuff. And I'll just quickly bring this up while we're talking, and just show. So this is I did a bit of a Hansard search. So I've chosen to look on in regards to the emergency management in miscellaneous amendment bill, which we'll talk into a little bit shortly. And I had a look through that. So that there was 9 search results there. Now I clicked on one of them there on the Hansard. One of them I've already clicked on, and it's I think it was the one from Ben Hood, I believe. I'll just bring that up as well. So this is what it brings up. Is this is then the reading, isn't it? So adjournment debate on second reading. So this is a second reading, and this is obviously Ben Hood getting up to talk.
And that makes sense, because this looks like it's part of the debate. You've got someone giving a speech. This is the Liberal member giving a speech in support of the bill, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so I think they wanted some amendments from memory, and I think that I'm not sure if the amendments were passed or not, but that kind of gives people a bit of an idea if they did want to find out more. But again, this is something we could probably do down the track, is showing people how to access this information easily for themselves to find out, this sort of information. But I think there's the one of the big things for me is understanding, having an easy access place to understand how your member voted on certain bills, and have that really open and transparent to people. I think that for me anyway, I think that's important.
Yeah, and it's some people have gone to a lot of work to make it open for everyone to see, but some people might be also depending on the difficulty that still remains, for anyone to just jump on and have a look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, thanks. So that's the lower house tabling the bills, and then obviously going through the upper house and so forth. And as I said, people can always throw in some questions when they do watch this, and send send us an email or information when we stream this. And if they've got questions, or they'd like to unpack something further, then they can obviously do that. But I'll let you proceed with what you wanted to show.
So actually, they wanted to go through an example, and I was thinking of going through the Emergency Management Act. And
yeah, for sure.
I think I've got a little timeline of events, so I can sort of talk through what happened with this bill.
Yeah, that'll be good.
It was introduced in 2024 on the 27th of November. That might have been like their last week of sitting. I'm not sure, but that would have been near the end of it. So that's when it had the first reading. The second reading, and this was in the lower house. This was in the House of Assembly, as it's called at the state level. The second reading was on the 20th of March. They discussed it on the 19th and 20th, and then it made it to second reading on the 20th. And then after that, they picked it back up on the 3rd of June, and they went through it piece by piece. They made a few amendments, and it got to third reading. And so it had passed the lower house. And that one was, it was just on the voices, which is what they call it when, I hear more yay. So that's passed on the voices, which is a little jargon term. And then it went to the upper house that day, but they picked it up to look at on the 18th of June. Then they debated it on the 19th. And later that day, so it got its second reading. Then they went to the committee. They turned into the committee. Committee of the whole is the jargon term, but I'm not sure how much that's used. And it got to its third reading, but I think they changed one little bit of it. They added one little section, and then it was at the end of that, they sent it back to the lower house, and the lower house, I think they just did one little vote, and they passed it with the amendment. So they sent it back, but it was, a formality, and it went through. And when you look in the second reading section, when they have moved for the second reading, but it hasn't got the second reading yet, I think that's called the second reading part. And they have the debate for the bill in the upper house. That's where you get to see a lot of different voices saying what they think about that bill, because people's votes make a difference. So it's not just, I'm not sure how much things are for show, because not a lot of people watch state parliament, but maybe for show, for the parties or whatever. But no, you had all these people in the upper house give their speeches on it, and you see, I think Ben Hood said, "Oh yeah, I think it's a good idea." You saw the Greens say, "Oh yeah, I think it's a good idea." You had Connie Benara say that, and so on. And Sarah Game, though, had a different point of view. And she gave a speech. I won't go through the whole thing, but she opened with, it appears that the extraordinary powers used by the executive government under the Emergency Management Act and the South Australian Public Health Act to close borders, lock down the state, impose social distancing restrictions, mandate vaccines and mask wearing, and arrest non-compliant citizens are not enough for the current Labor government. This extraordinary bill is catapulted through the House of Assembly without opposition and arrives in this place to be rubber stamped. And she went on like that. She said how it broadens powers under the South Australian Public Health Act that were brought in 2022 to deal with COVID-19, and it allows the state coordinator to declare a state of alert if it appears that an emergency is likely to occur, or if or things like that. Anyway, so I'm not an expert on the details of this particular bill, or what it was aiming to do. There's a lot of legal mechanics involved, but what we can see is, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's fine. No, I don't think so. And then when it went into actually the committee, Sarah Green did take part. She tried to, amend some things. She could have just said no, I don't support it, but she did get involved a bit. I haven't read closely how much of that was accepted, but when it comes to the final vote, you weren't far off seeing it. Actually, I think you were on the right page, but it might be a bit of scrolling. When it came down to the third reading, so I don't know if you scroll back up to the top. See how it's got all of this stuff. Third reading, the Honourable E.S. Burke. Do you see that on the left?
So we got the second readings,
yep.
Standing orders, and third reading, E.S. Burke, yep. Oh, yep, so this is where you got the committee divided on
This
amendments.
is about one of the amendments. This is what it looks like when they have a division. So I'm not sure what the amendment is. You can see Ben Hood is talking about it. But the point I'd like to make here is you have ayes, how many said yes? Noes, how many said no? And majority, which is, the bigger number minus the small one. And you see a list of who said aye and who said no. So that's what a division looks like in Parliament.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm not sure if it's convenient to find, but down the bottom somewhere, you're going to find the bit where it says they put it to a vote, and it will say simply, bill read a third time and passed. There it is. So the Honourable E.S. Burke says, I move that this bill now be read a third time. Bill read a third time and passed. That's what it looks like when a bill passes on the voices.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see the two different versions here. You can see what a division looks like and what on the voices looks like.
And the interesting part is that people can access this. It's just a matter of showing where to go. But I mean, that whole lot is in there. You know, there's got all the different readings from the different members going through, and the debate. You can see through that, so people can check that out themselves. But again, this is time-consuming for the average constituent.
That's
isn't
true.
it?
You can see the sheer amount of text there was people just talking about the bill or picking at it to tweak it. Whereas if you read the bill itself, it's another big slab of text. And this bill, this is a common pattern. It's an amendment bill. And what that does is it says, oh, there's a law that's already there, the Emergency Management Act 2004. We want to just edit the text a bit in here, this place, this place, this place. So what it says, if you actually read the bill that passed in 2025, it says in this section, we want to change this wording here. In this section, we want to change that. And so there are some, you know, it's possible to find like the before and after of the 2004 version and go like, okay, this is what we're under now. This is what it was before. This is what they changed. But what I'm hoping to do here is have a look through this stuff and try to pick out what might be of interest, so that I can say, oh, did you know that the government is looking at this? Did you know that they're looking at this? And so, yeah, people can get an idea of what's going on without having to sift through it all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and this is and it's really important for people that obviously are time poor to be able to, you know, have someone go through things like this, and especially bills. And I've always been a big favour of, if that is once something's presented, you know, that people are aware of how it could impact them at the end of the day, and follow it closely if they choose to. And this is, you know, one of the reasons that we do want to talk. And obviously, Australians for Better Government is all about having people involved and educated and informed to participate as well. And I think one of the things is, with this particular bill, there was a lot of concerns for people that went through COVID and saw the type of powers that government had during that period of time. And so I think a lot of people weren't really aware of some of the strengthening in this bill to some of those laws that were already in place, but also strengthened it. And so Sarah Game was the only one that I believe opposed the bill in its entirety, and she does talk about that, and it's worth. I'm going to play a bit of an interview that she had as well, which I think is just really important for people to then, because this brings open the next sort of discussion point, is that if people see something's tabled early enough, they're made aware, they can look at it, they can see, okay, this can affect me in this way negatively, or no, it's actually pretty good, I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, at an individual level, they can approach their member of parliament in their own electorate, whether it be, you know, whatever electorate you're in, and you've got a member sitting there, and approach them about, you know, why you'd want them to vote a certain way, whether yes or no. And then obviously also the members of the Legislative Council, which are obviously statewide, but you'd be able to reach out to them and say, look, when it reaches if it doesn't, you know, if it gets through the lower house and happens to get passed, you know, we're not happy about this, I'd like you in the Legislative Council to actually reject the bill for these fundamental reasons. As a constituent, I have grave concerns about this. And this is the big thing about how people can get involved and stop a lot of these things. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yes, yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, normally we hear about these things once they're passed, especially if it's state level. Whereas if you see them coming up, you might have thoughts about it and want to share them with someone involved in the parliament.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, I'll just play this bit of a clip from Sarah, because I think it is important, and this is the concerns that she had about the bill, and we saw obviously that it was rammed through because Labor had a majority, then that was supported by others, and she was the only one in the Legislative Council, at least, so it passed the lower house, got up to the upper house. She's in the Legislative Council, and I believe she was the only one that ended up voting against the bill, where everybody voted with it. So we'll just listen to her concerns with in this interview. I'll just bring this up, and we'll play that quickly.
Bill passed through the upper house virtually unopposed and unnoticed, but a quick read should trigger alarm bells. Controversially, it allows the state coordinator to declare a state of alert, a new legal mechanism that grants sweeping powers before an emergency actually occurs. bill passed the upper house with only one vote against it, and that was Fair Go for Australia MLC Sarah Game, who joins us now. Sarah, good morning to you.
Good morning, Graham.
Why should we be concerned?
Well, people should be very concerned, Graham, but what I want to start with actually, or make clear, is this is part two of the story where the Labor government seizes more power and the citizens of South Australia have less ability to challenge any abuse of that power. So this is actually part two to that story. Part one started back in 2022, and you might recall, Graham, that we had a chat back then when we passed the Public Health COVID Amendment Bill. And it's really important to revisit that, Graham, because that was part one of the power grab and misleading South Australian public. What we saw back in 2022 was Robert Sims from the Greens, Tony Panaris from SA Best, and Peter Malinauskas basically high-fiving each other on Parliament steps to largely an applauding media, announcing, look, we've lifted this emergency declaration that's been imposed on South Australian public for 793 days. We've passed this legislation, aren't we all amazing? And largely they were celebrated for it. And at that time I came on your show and I explained to people that what that legislation actually did was say, hey, if there's an emergency, again, we can do everything we just did. We can have low accountability, low transparency. We can have constant extensions. But due to these changes we've made, we've actually removed a lot of your safeguards so we can be more heavy-handed, be less restricted in our behaviour and less accountability. And back then I introduced 6 amendments, which all flopped. And that brings us to part two of the power grab, because this recent week with the Emergency Management Miscellaneous Amendment Bill, this time, Graham, we're standing for celebratory photo, but I still put up 10 amendments this time. They all flopped, this time with only one vote.
So, all right, you would concede that in extraordinary times, the government does need extraordinary powers.
Absolutely, and they need to be able to protect, people and animals and livestock from disease and act nimbly. But as you stated, what they've done is actually extend their ability to enact really extraordinary powers. And I just want to read some of them out, Graham, so people understand what we're talking about. It says that the state coordinator or authorised officer may actually enter, break into land, buildings, vehicle, remove or destroy any building, vehicle, animal or thing. That a person may be submitted to a decontamination procedure, remain isolated, segregated from other people, directed to undergo medical observations or diagnostic procedures and so on. Now, all I'm saying, Graham, is if we're going to give people extraordinary powers like that and actually expand the situations in which they may be able to implement those powers, which is what's happened with this recent bill, so that now we can have emergency powers, in fact, when there's no emergency. So the state coordinator might say, look, I think an emergency is coming, so we're going to have these emergency powers. I don't need to provide evidence of that emergency. There is no emergency yet, but we're going to do these powers to protect people. If we're going to have legislation like that, it's really important that people can be held to account for any misuse of that power, that it's transparent, that evidence of why we're acting in that way is provided to people, that there are timely reviews. And that's why I wanted to amend the legislation to include words like in a manner that is reasonable in the circumstances, or where is reasonably necessary. And all of that was rejected, Graham. People should be very concerned about that.
Why was it you were the only one that voted against it?
Well, this is it, Graham. Look, I've heard the Liberals try to defend themselves and say, look, we put on the record that we thought her amendments were okay, but we just couldn't, we couldn't get ourselves together in time to support them. But the fact is, anyone who goes to the Hansard will see that the Liberals came out in full support of this bill. And I think they're totally out of touch with the way people are feeling after COVID. I mean, we saw massive overreach in COVID. People are very unhappy with how that was handled, lack of transparency, lack of accountability now. And so although we all want to be able to make sure appropriate measures are taken in an emergency, we also have to protect ourselves from people that might abuse the powers that they're given, protect people's public liberty rights.
It's all well and good to say that, of course the government wouldn't do the wrong thing, but if there are no checks and balances, how can we be sure?
Well, that's it. Look, they remove phrases such as using such force as is necessary. And when you've got legislation that says enacting officers can exercise any prescribed power, which many legal professionals in the Law Society are concerned about, and then you simultaneously remove phrases such as use force as necessary, that should make people very concerned, Graham.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one here now. Forcing disclosure of information overrides privacy protections and secrecy provisions in other legislation. So you've got no protection at all.
Oh, no, they're allowed to break the law. They're allowed to ask other people to break the law.
I'm gobsmacked, I must say, Sarah. I am totally gobsmacked. And I'm even more gobsmacked that A, that the government proposed this bill and the amendment, and B, that the Liberals and most other members of both houses of Parliament agreed that it was okay.
Well, that's right. I'm going to start a petition, Graham. And if anyone's listening and they're upset, they can certainly email me at gameoffice@parliament.sa.gov.au. Otherwise, you can have a look out at my social media. I'm getting a petition, Graham, because I think the Parliament is seriously out of step with community feeling on this matter.
So there you go, and obviously not
Yeah.
aligned to any political party. Obviously, Sarah Game has got her political party and so forth, but I think it's a really good clip to show in her raising her concerns, and Graham was obviously concerned in regards to that. And you heard her there, obviously saying a couple of things that I picked up on was the Liberals not getting themselves together in time to, they didn't really have too many issues. What she was proposing in regards to amendments, she thought there was it was too much power in that bill, and they didn't end up protecting it. But like you said, there's evidence of Hansard, and people can check that out themselves. We've shown people, the Hansard, and people can, obviously check that out. I'm just going to bring that back up again quickly. It's all there in black and white, how the conversations went from different people. But this is, I guess, the thing I'm sort of getting at is encouraging people to be more involved in the politics, because then legislation like this that appears to be massively an overreach in the event of an emergency, people all of a sudden say, well, how did they get away with those sorts of powers? And this is exactly the reason, is that because people aren't aware and aren't challenging enough. And as she said, well, she was doing that interview from what I believe after that bill had been passed. But if enough people were concerned and wrote to their members of parliament, or went to their office and said, look, we have concerns about this, we don't want to accept the bill in the way it's been according to the first and second reading. So really it requires constituents and voters to be involved in this process. But a lot of people are so time poor, aren't they? It's about how do we make it easier for them.
Oh yes, yeah. I suppose one thing about a law about how you manage emergencies is you don't get to observe the effect of it until there's an emergency. So it can catch people by surprise, very much. Yeah, if they weren't really aware of it in the first place. So yeah, basically I plan to have a look every month and see if there's anything interesting or surprising, bring it over, let's see what you think of it, and just see if we can get a bit more of an idea what's going on in the parliament. It's a good time, I think, because we've just had an election. This is the start of the parliament. We can see what their first steps look like and all this, and see if they have any of those days where it's like, oh, we just want to pass everything today, or what.
Yeah, 100%, and that'd be really good. And again, this is really just encouraging people to think as well. We're obviously in South Australia. We're talking about the South Australian Parliament, but it's encouraging all others, obviously, to look at doing the same in their own states. And this comes down to even at the council level, the state level, and the federal level. Australians for Better Government are focused on all levels of government, whether it be local all the way through to state and federal. So it's really important for other people in other states to just be aware of their system and look at how they can be involved to stay abreast. But this, I think, that'll be really beneficial for, at least in our state here in South Australia, for you to give an overview on some of the bills that you feel, and you're obviously working with some others that are looking at this as well, and in particular bills or legislation that can I guess negatively impact the average person on the street, and sort of really, show and how we can unpack that as well. So it's kind of the idea going forward. And obviously today was a little bit of an overview of obviously the process of Parliament and so forth, and definitely encourage people who are watching this that would like to find out more, potentially get us to dive a bit deeper into a particular thing within the Parliament and the process and so forth. So looking forward to being able to have a bit more of a chat as time goes on. And was there anything that you wanted to close on for the audience, or one of the key things that you'd want them to know going, leaving this session and going forward?
I don't know. Maybe just pay a bit of attention to state government news over the next few months, because if you've got an ear out, you might go, oh, there's something's happening in it, and then you have a look at what's happening in the hand side. You might be able to understand more from the connection.
Yeah, the key thing is becoming politically involved. So, look, if you've liked this discussion and you've, you appreciate the information that's been shared by Alex and the discussion that we've had, continue to follow along on Australians for Better Government. Obviously, this is this will be streamed on X and Facebook, and we've got our YouTube channel. So, I encourage you to follow. Obviously, it helps if you do subscribe and you follow along. And regardless of which platform you're on, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and follow along on the conversation. But for now, I really appreciate your time, Alex, and putting that together. Again, a lot of the people that are involved in politics and wanting to make our fellow Australians aware, do it on a volunteer capacity. The board of Australians for Better Government, we're all volunteers. Everything that we're doing is from our own time to really just help Australians stay informed and look at ways that we can improve our politics and our government. And it's the same with you and the people you're working with as well. So appreciate your time.
But our votes keep the same value, even if our money loses value. So.
Good point to leave on. Exactly right. Good point to leave on. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again, Alex, and looking forward to catching up with you again.
All right then. Thanks, Mark. See ya.